Hi everybody, this is Craig Tanner for The Mindful Eye and the Daily Critique. Today's image was submitted by Francis, who's an intermediate photographer from Texas. Francis shot this at Healy Pass in Banff National Park in Canada. She used an Olympus E620 14mm lens. Exposure information is ISO 100 f/19 and 1/100th of a second. Francis has several different questions here. She says, how do you get all of this information in the shot and still get a good composition? She also asked about getting everything in focus here and just how could the image have generally been better. Francis mentioned something else from a technical standpoint that I wanted to talk about here. This particular camera body has a monitor that LCD monitor on the back that folds out, and she says she took a very low angle here, and this monitor folding out enabled her to, instead of getting on her stomach to look through the camera at a very low angle, she's able to look down on the fold out monitor and compose the shot. And a very powerful tool. Most people that are watching this that have a DSLR, your LCD monitor is fixed on the back of your camera. It doesn't fold out. But a lot of you might not know that you can purchase an accessory called a right angle finder that will attach to the viewfinder of your camera and essentially let you do the same thing that Francis has done here, look down into the right angle finder to look through the camera pointing out into the scene like this. And I use a right angle finder quite a bit in my color and black and white landscape work because I like to shoot big sweeping landscapes, and a lot of times to create a foreground you need to be low like Francis is here. We'll put up a link to B&H Photo and Video where you can go and look at one of these finders, and then hopefully if you're interested you'll be able to find a model right angle finder that will fit your camera make and camera body. I wanted to mention something else technical here. Francis mentioned getting everything in focus, and she shot at f/19, which definitely will give a lot of depth of field, but then we run into diffraction. We just posted a couple of videos about diffraction, about f-stop, and also about focus stacking, and we'll put up links to those in the information lead-in to this video. Because we've covered that lately, we won't get into that today. There are other videos that you can watch about that. It really leaves us with the idea of composition and sort of making the image better. And when I think about that part of the shot, the things that I really like about the composition here, number one is Francis getting very low and creating a foreground that's very palpable for me as the viewer. I feel like I can reach out and touch these flowers. A lot of times sort of the kiss of death in a big wide angle scenic traditional color shot is you don't get close enough. Francis has done an awesome job here of getting really close to her foreground. She has a repetition of the foreground idea out into the middle ground, which really helps to lead me through here. Some really nice contrast in the middle part of the shot that really draws my eye. But then there's some openings, and then I can go all the way out to the mountains and a really nice line of clouds here. I think the shot just the way it is really gives me the feeling of being in this situation, and I think a very successful landscape shot. When I start to think about possibly making it better, if I just want to think in a real basic sense about traditional color landscapes where we're photographing a beautiful thing beautifully, in a perfect world we could be there earlier or later. It's not really talked about so much as to why that works better. We talk about all the time, the magic hour for landscape work. One of the big reasons that early and late time has such a big emotional impact on the viewer just has to do with the psychology of color. And one of the things that makes it really difficult in big scenic shots like this in the middle of the day is that in this shot you have the same sort of color temperature of light everywhere. And it not only do you have the same color temperature of light everywhere, it's a color temperature of light that can have sort of the reverse kind of psychological effect that we would like to have on the viewer, where we want them to feel sort of this grandeur. Right now what we have is Francis probably shooting at daylight white balance. We've got the sun, the bright part of the day, shining white, but the ambient part of the light is the rest of the sky, which is very blue at this altitude. And then you have all this reflected green light. White plus blue plus green equals a blue-green cast everywhere in the image. And if we were to shoot early and late, and in addition to different qualities of light in terms of direction of light that can be more dramatic, early and late in a shot like this, you're almost always going to have a color gradient or color temperature gradient that looks like this. Very warm here right on the horizon. If we include enough sky, cool above that and cool in the shadow. And that kind of color gradient has a huge psychological impact on us. It's very inviting. You could think about standing in the dark and looking at candlelight, or looking at a fire that's very warm. You could think about standing in the cool blue of twilight and looking back at the inside of a house with a tungsten glow. So that concept of color temperature, early and late, has a big impact on the viewer. You might think, well, couldn't we sort of get some of the blue-green out? Sure, we could. Let's just, real quick, we could go to Browse and Bridge, click here. Now you can open up any file in the raw converter, TIFF, JPEG, or RAW. It doesn't have to be a RAW file. We go to the white balance tool, click here to get some of the blue out, and it does warm things up, but we just now have a warmer shot everywhere. And so one of the really difficult things to pull off in color scenic landscape work is quantity and qualities of light that are the same everywhere. So that would be true if we were shooting an overcast and the bright part of the day. So much of the time, having a split feeling in terms of quality and quantity of light in a shot like this is going to work a lot better. When I think about composition, as much as I like what Francis has done here, I think that you could tighten the foreground up even more. What do I mean by that? Pick a camera position where the pattern of flowers is simpler, and also sort of leads out into this beautiful background, instead of kind of creating an arc of implied energy that in some respects kind of takes me on an arc out of the sides of the image and cuts these corners off. I can imagine trying to look for an arrangement where the implied energy of a group of flowers is a little bit more like this. That would rhyme the design of the flower as a major part of the image design. It would also rhyme the mounds or the shapes of the mountains in the background. And when I'm trying to photograph beautiful things beautifully, boy, do I really pay attention to repetition. That would be something I really look at here in terms of trying to imply visual energy in the lower part of the image. A couple of other things that this image really makes me think about. I know from Frances's backstory in the submission that included some other pictures that she's traveling with a group of people here that may or may not be into photography. So let's say that it's not practical for Frances to be in this valley, this hanging valley, when the light is maybe more dramatic. That really leads me to start to think about other concepts. One of them is self-portrait. So much of the time when I'm teaching workshops, somebody will shoot a picture and they'll come over and they'll sort of ask the same question that Frances asked here: how could it be better? And then when I ask them questions, ultimately what they're saying is, I have this feeling about this place, but I'm looking at my picture, and from the picture I'm not getting it. And if we're brave enough to put ourselves in the shot, and we're brave enough to take pictures of ourselves and to sit there and express on our face or with our body language exactly what it is that we're feeling, and to take a picture of that and to just suggest the environment out of focus in the background, could be a very, very powerful way to shoot the shot, to just sit down in the flowers and to make it more about a portrait. You could also do the same thing with the people you're traveling with. I'm not talking here about an environment dominant shot of people walking on the trail. That can be a very powerful shot too. I'm talking about taking a very tight portrait, and again, talking to someone and getting them to express with their with gesture, with expression, what it is that they're feeling about this space. We could also move in an abstract direction. And one of the things I'd really encourage you to think about looking at this shot today is that if we try to shoot traditional when it comes to landscapes, that can be really, really difficult. Quality of light is not under our control. So many people shoot these kinds of shots, and iconic locations like this have been shot so much that our images can be compared to that standard. And if we're willing to go outside of that, and if we're willing to work with something like self-portrait or go more abstract, or shoot a tight shot of somebody, those things can be very challenging for photographers. But if we open that area up to our creativity, I think we can start to get a lot more feeling into our shots all the time, because self-portrait or portraits or those kinds of images are always available to us, if we're willing to go there. Having said all that, knowing what I know about the situation Frances was in, I think that she's created a beautiful image here that really gives me the sense of being in this space. And I would love to hear your feedback about the video today. I want to say a big thank you to Frances for sharing this image and others with us on The Mindful Eye. I hope to see you again real soon.